Good morning. I am thrilled that I can bring you some positive news right here on Gen Taub Live about some possibilities that could change the course, not just of one of Donald Trump's key policy proclamations, but also may bode well for the future of stopping his radical, hateful, murderous agenda. And I do want to get to that, and I'm going to tease that information right now. But first, I want to jump over live to the House floor where we have the ranking member of the House, who is Hakeem Jeff. I'm sorry, I'm calling the ranking member, the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, is on the floor talking about the bill that will inevitably pass. In the middle of the night, around 3:30 in the morning, there was a lot of folks moving their votes around to pass this rule that has to allow for some debate before the final vote. And what we know now is that Donald Trump does have the votes among the Republicans, only Republicans in the House, to support his terrible legislation. However, what this rule does allow is something they're calling this magic minute, which means that someone can speak for a minute, but as long as they don't stop talking, they can keep going. It's kind of like the equivalent of a filibuster in the Senate, but a little different. So I want to hop over there and take a listen to what Hakeem Jeffries is saying right now. Later, I'll show you some clips of what he has said before. Okay, guys, let's do this. This is a historical moment, and I think it's important to see what is happening over there. Here we
The
go.
great state of Arizona. In my disabled senior status, I would be in a dire nutritional status, if not mostly for the SNAP nutritional assistance, a godsend. For so many Americans, that is what SNAP has been, a godsend in a time of need. And now the nutritional assistance benefits will be ripped away from millions of Americans in Donald Trump's one big ugly bill, a bill that Republicans are prepared to recklessly rubber stamp. You also heard from Diana, great state of California. Diana writes, SNAP has helped my family tremendously during this difficult time. We really appreciate all the help. My husband was diagnosed with cancer, and we have a little one at home. It's been difficult taking care of everything. Please keep this benefit to help people get on their feet. Diana lives in the Inland Empire, California's 33rd congressional district, represented by the chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, Pete Aguilar. Diana, Pete Aguilar is fighting hard for you. Just like every single House Democrat are fighting hard for the American people to protect you as best we can from this cruel assault on nutritional assistance. We're going to continue to fight hard for you. In Ohio, Julie writes to us, I'm so thankful for Amelia Sykes, Marcy Kaptur. Marcy Kaptur is the original gangster of the Ohio delegation. The longest serving woman in the history of the United States Congress, fighting hard on behalf of the people she incredibly represents. Along with Amelia and Shontel Brown and Greg Landsman, and of course, y'all know I couldn't leave out my big sister, Joyce Beatty. I wanted to mention Joyce because this is part of the resilience of what we've seen from House Democrats, from Brittany Pedersen, distinguished gentlelady from the great state of Colorado, who gave birth to a beautiful baby boy, Sam, at the beginning of this year. But because House Republicans, Mr. Speaker, have refused to allow proxy voting, virtual voting for expectant mothers and new mothers throughout this year, shortly after giving birth, Congresswoman Brittany Pedersen, each and every week, often with her baby boy, Sam, has come to the United States Congress to stand with House Democrats in defense of the American people. And she did it in connection with that first vote that set this whole disgusting abomination into motion in February. That same day, Kevin Mullins showed up to vote on behalf of the American people. Just like all of us continue to do, Kevin Mullins showed up to vote despite the fact that he had been experiencing multiple surgeries, was dealing with some complications. But he understood, just like all House Democrats understand, the need to stand up in this moment and fight hard for the American people, the need to be here throughout this entire toxic journey that Republicans have set us on. Connection with this one big ugly bill. Kevin Mullins, coming off of multiple surgeries, rolled out of his hospital bed, got on a plane from Northern California, took his wife with him so that she could change his IV on the plane across the country to be here and stand with his sisters and brothers in the House Democratic Caucus family to push back against this one big ugly bill. I was so thankful, so appreciative to see the great Joyce Beatty,
For those joining us now, this is live
who's been
on the
battling
House
some
floor.
issues, working her way through them, putting off surgeries for as long as she could. And yet, perhaps against some of the advice that she may have received, understood, as she said in her own words, the importance of being here on behalf of the American people to stand up and push back against Trump's one big ugly bill, because it will have devastating consequences for everyday Americans. Thank you, Joyce Beatty, for your courage, your strength, and your resilience on behalf of the people that you represent in the great state of Ohio and people all across the country. That's what we do as House Democrats, and you're leading by example. And I could tell stories about every single one of us who in this moment recognizes that we have to keep rising to the occasion because of the extraordinary assault that has been launched against the American people by Donald Trump and complete Republican control here in Washington. Let's understand who is doing you in. People on the other side of the aisle. It's not too late. All we need are 4 Republicans to join us to show John McCain levels of courage. Not on the battlefield, as he did in such an extraordinary way. And yes, Mr. President, John McCain was an American hero and patriot. An American hero and patriot. I may have disagreed with him on a whole host of issues. We cannot disagree with the fact that he was an American patriot and a war hero who served this country overseas. And then he came back home after being a POW year after year after year. And got elected to the United States House of Representatives. Did I get that right, y'all? To the United States House of Representatives. Just making sure y'all are paying attention. All good things start in the United States House of Representatives, as far as we're concerned. And then he went over to the Senate. And then in one of his final acts of courage, he pushed back against the effort to rip away health care from millions of Americans. All we need is 4 Republicans to show John McCain levels of courage when it comes to protecting the health, the safety, and the well-being of the American people, protecting the nutritional assistance of the American people. I think earlier today, I may have neglected to mention the leadership of Jim McGovern, who's done an extraordinary job leading the charge on the Rules Committee as we've pushed back against this all-out assault on the American people. Hour after hour after hour after hour, Jim McGovern, the members of the Rules Committee, and so many members of the House Democratic Caucus pushing amendment after amendment, debating hard against this one big ugly bill on behalf of the American people. Jim McGovern, of course, longtime champion for combating hunger in the United States of America. So thankful for Jim's resilience and his strength, even in the face of great tragedy. Continues to battle hard on behalf of the American people. Julie writes, SNAP has been an amazing help to my family. Very grateful to receive it. I'm a single mom of twin 13-year-old girls. I've been on my own with my girls since they were 1 and have never received child support. I do work. People who receive Medicaid work.
Sorry, guys, I was muted. So, yes, I know that Hakeem Jeffries speaking will not change the votes of those who are locked in, but he is using his voice and ensuring, he is ensuring that we will know who is responsible for this abomination. His speech will be in the congressional record for those who want to look this up, who can quote him in the future. They won't have to find some YouTube video or an old archive video from the House floor. It matters to me that he is trying. He held his caucus together. At the end of the day, Donald Trump whipped his people in shape, most likely because he promised goodies to them on the side. So I'm going to share with you how that kind of played out. Here is an example from this morning of one of those holdout Republicans speaking with Andrew Ross Sorkin about why he came around.
I don't understand is you had a view that was negative about this bill yesterday. Is there something different about the bill today?
Yeah, it is. We met with President Trump, and he did a masterful job of laying out how we could improve it, how he could use, as his chief executive office, use things to make the bill better.
So there's going to be there are big distinctions between. I guess what I'm trying to understand is the bill that was sent from the Senate back to you is fundamentally different from yesterday to today, because then the Senate would have to.
Different. No, it's we accepted the bill as is. What's different is President Trump is going to use his powers to, like on the subsidies, to make sure that a lot of these subsidies won't remain in effect, from here on out. And
What? What? Did you even hear that? Andrew Ross Sorkin was like, okay, so what's different? Okay, so there's nothing different in the bill. The bill that these guys condemned, the bill that these ultra conservatives who want to starve us even more, who want to crush Medicaid recipients even more and see rural hospitals close, the people who object to the pork barrel spending that bought off people like Lisa Murkowski. Oh, those subsidies won't last that long, so he can stomach this. Really? Okay. So we're going to go back, not right now, but in a moment, and watch Hakeem Jeffries and whoever else chooses to stand up for the American people. But before we do that, I want to tell you about this surprising, amazing news that I'm actually excited about. Yesterday's show was really hard, and nothing has changed since yesterday other than this prison camp, this concentration camp that Donald Trump set up in Florida 2 days ago. Well, guess what? We talked about it yesterday morning. Um, guess what? Guess what? It is flooding because it's that season in the Everglades. So let's hope that other acts of God can thwart his hateful agenda. Now, This is not what I'm talking to you about now, an act of God. This is an act of a federal judge. And just listen to me for a moment. This is a little bit of a law school lesson, but this is important to talk about because I'm not giving you this sort of song and dance of Donald Trump's going to go down any day now. He's destroyed. He'll never pass a law again. People who tell you that are getting your eyeballs, and your eyeballs are giving them advertising money. And when you listen to that bullshit, you might feel better, but it's not. And I'm glad, we all talk about feeling better, but I want you to come to this show, to Gen Taub Live, where you can feel better because we're honest, because we take our victories where they come, and we talk honestly about the defeats, and we are a community. And for us, that's what I'm doing. So let me tell you, no BS here. This is a really important potential big setback for part of Donald Trump's agenda and is maybe a harbinger of things to come. So what am I talking about here? I'm talking about a decision from this man right here, District Judge Randall Moss. He is, you can look at his very impressive bio, but among other things, he clerked for Justice John Paul Stevens at the United States Supreme Court. He has had a distinguished career both in private practice and as a U.S. attorney. And he has been a federal judge now for what looks to be at least, I guess, about 10 or 11 years. Now, let me tell you what I'm talking about. And let me step back. This is a caption for a case, a decision by Judge Moss that came down yesterday. And what this is about, I need to step back with you. We're going to take it piece by piece. And as it unfolds, you'll see why this is good. So, this is a case that was brought by groups and on behalf of immigrants who wanted to or want to in the future seek asylum. People coming from the southern border through Mexico to the US who want to take advantage of US law about asylum in the United States. Now, most of us think we know what asylum is, and I'm going to dig into that in a moment, but let me just basically say to you and share with you something, and I'm going to drop this in the chat, something you can go back to later. But here's the deal. Under legislation enacted by Congress and signed by the president, you can, in this country, you can seek asylum. Basically, this case is about two different methods of seeking asylum in the United States. And again, I'll tell you what asylum gets you in a moment. One way is to show up at the border, the southern border, and say, I want to enter the United States and seek asylum. You're essentially claiming that you are a refugee from a country where you are not safe. I'm going to say that quite simply, right? You are not safe in your country. You're subject to persecution, imprisonment, violence, etc. So one way is to show up at the border and seek asylum affirmatively. That's an affirmative kind of seeking of asylum. Another way people seek asylum is they might do it defensively, such as they are in the United States and they are apprehended and they are they're not documented, and they are defensively. They've been given an immigration hearing, and they found a lawyer or a public interest organization, and in defense of a deportation proceeding, they raise as their defense asylum. And let me tell you, I am not an immigration law expert, but I have read up on this for you. And I want you to understand the parameters of this. Again, you can do it offensively, either at the border or once you're in, or you can do it defensively because there's a proceeding brought against you. Now, my understanding of how the law works is this is not an unlimited situation. If you are going to seek asylum, very specifically asylum, which we'll talk about what that grants you in a moment, you have to do so either at crossing or within the first year of your most recent presence in the United States, right? So let's say you've been living here for 5 years and you realize that it's possible that you might be apprehended and subject to deportation. I suppose if you go away and then come back in, the clock starts again. Okay, but the bottom line is asylum, right? You have that opportunity. Now, what does it mean? And this is if you are seeking asylum. This is where I want to share this with you in a second. Okay, so when you are seeking asylum, you are asking for essentially a pathway to citizenship. The best outcome, either at the border or defensively, when you are seeking asylum, is that your background is looked into and you have been at these hearings where you think you credible fear or reasonable fear. There's different levels, and an immigration judge says, yes, you're someone who should get asylum. That is the best path. And with that path, the next step is you are then given a green card, right? You have temporary protected status while you go through the steps of becoming a citizen, right? That is the gold standard. That is what you would want if you were seeking asylum. However, not everybody will meet those standards. There might be reasons, and this is where I'm going to share with you. There might be reasons why, and this is the website, the link. I'm going to drop it one more time. There might be reasons why when you that you don't meet the standards for asylum. However, the immigration judge or the other authority decides, and I'm going to scroll down, that you should get some kind of protection. So again, I'm going to show you how this is laid out. That is not the end of the day. You might get something, and let me stop the screen share. You might get something less than asylum. You might get something similar to what Kilmar Abrego Garcia did. Now, he wasn't obviously, he wasn't able to seek asylum because he had been here more than a year, right? But what he was able to do is get something which is the next step, right? So the next step would be either because you blew through the 1 year or you went through the hearings and you didn't meet the criteria for whatever reason, you might be not granted asylum, but you might get some kind of order saying that you cannot be deported. And that can happen, right? So this is the idea, right? And you might say, so this would be like a bar for removal, right? So the ideal thing is you get granted asylum, you get your green card, and maybe you get eventually to become a citizen. The next step down is, okay, well, the court decides that you are in danger, so you cannot be removed. And this is sort of, like I said, what happened to Kilmar Abrego Garcia. After his hearings in 2019, they said, they had an opportunity to challenge it. The government did, and nope. So he had this status where he could not be, removed. That was what happened to him, right? This is it's called like a withholding of removal. So that is a kind of tricky status. You have to keep showing up for your immigration hearings. And then the next status you might have would be no, neither asylum nor sort of this halting or this suspending of removal. Maybe you just get deported, right? But even so, what if that happens? Well, under law, you still cannot be tortured or mistreated or denied due process. So those are, I'm giving you the three levels of how things are supposed to be if you are seeking asylum. Again, it's not easy to do. It takes years, the process for seeking asylum. So you know about this. Well, why am I mentioning this in the context of Donald Trump? Well, on the first day of his presidency, the second term, on January 20th of 2025, Donald Trump signed numerous orders, executive orders. And one of the executive orders that he signed was supposedly to protect the states from invasion. That's what he called it. And it was called Guaranteeing States Protection Against Invasion. And he signs this order, and it basically had multiple parts, but essentially he was shutting down the ability for people to seek asylum at the border. Okay, that was what happened in January. Well, yesterday, July 2nd, July 2nd. So in the case, there was a case brought challenging this, right? So yesterday, what I'm talking to you about is this really, really important decision. We're going to walk through it specifically, and then we're going to explain the implications. I hope you guys find this helpful. We're going to go to Hakeem Jeffries in a second. Okay, so this is the caption for that case. It's Refugee and Immigrant Center for Education and Legal Services et al. So a group, they're the plaintiffs, versus Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security in her official capacity et al. Defendants. Yes, Donald Trump is one of those defendants. So here's the big takeaway from this decision. You may have heard this on the news. For the reasons that follow, the court, meaning Judge Moss, concludes that neither the Immigration and Naturalization Act nor the Constitution grants the president or the agency defendants authority to replace the comprehensive rules and procedures set forth in the Immigration and Naturalization Act and the governing regulations with an extra regulatory regime for repatriating or removing individuals from the United States without an opportunity to apply for asylum or withholding of removal and without complying with the regulations governing protection. Okay. Cat protection is a convention against torture. I'm going to translate that, you guys. I'm going to translate that into human speak. And this is what we were just talking about before. Okay. That's the first part. I'm going to get to the kicker. The judge is saying, look, Donald Trump and the agency cannot make up the law. There already is a comprehensive scheme. There are three layers. One is seeking asylum. The other is withholding of deportation, withholding of, I should say, removal. And the third is merely protections under the Convention Against Torture that the United States signed. So again, those are the three layers I talked about. That's why I told you about them. And now we're specifically talking about people coming over from the southern border. Donald Trump wanted to say no seeking of asylum, and the court says no. You can't just make this stuff up. There is an asylum process. There's also if you don't get asylum, there's withholding of removal. Obviously, if you're crossing the border and you're affirmatively asking for asylum, obviously you haven't been here for a year, one would presume. And so, but you still might not get granted asylum. So again, you might get that step down, the withholding of removal, which is what Kilmar Abrego Garcia had. And even if you don't get that, if you are detained, the conventions against torture apply to you. That is what the judge said. The judge said you cannot just rewrite that. But now here is the coup de grace. Okay, let us look at that. This is the part I've highlighted in yellow. the court, meaning Judge Moss, he could say I, but it's the court. He speaks for the court. The court recognizes that the executive branch faces enormous challenges in preventing and deterring unlawful entry into the United States and in adjudicating the overwhelming backlog of asylum cases of those who have entered the country. But the Immigration and Naturalization Act, by its terms, provides the sole and exclusive means for removing people directly, removing people already present in the country. And as the Department of Justice correctly concluded less than 9 months ago, that the statute provides the president that no part of this statute, this law, provides the president with the unilateral authority to limit the rights of aliens present in the United States to apply for asylum. Okay, so now they're talking about what if you're already here? Here, nothing in the INAs or the Constitution grants, nothing in the Immigration and Naturalization Act or the Constitution grants the president or his delegates a sweeping authority asserted in the proclamation and implementing guidance. An appeal to necessity cannot fill that void. So the deal here, my friends, is there's, I think, when I looked at the numbers yesterday, over like 1.5 million asylum cases still being adjudicated. If you don't like it, hire more judges. That's kind of the bottom line. Or come up with a better path to citizenship for people who have been working here, who have not committed any crime other than the misdemeanor, maybe of crossing the border or a speeding ticket, something like you and I might get, right? You cannot just change the law. And he's talking now, remember, there's crossing the border, seeking asylum, and then there are people who are already in the US, either actively seeking asylum or defensively seeking it. If you're here and you're doing it, that path cannot be foreclosed. Now, there is more for this case. We get what the court granted here. So I want to tell you, this is where we're getting to what's really super duper important here. Okay, so we're right now just laser focused on this case. This is a good decision so far on the law saying nobody. One of your chief priorities to end asylum in the United States is effed. It's not lawful. This is great. Now, you may remember how many times you have heard Donald Trump hear the word asylum and start talking about Hannibal Lecter from Silence of the Lambs. Have you not? And he riffs on this, going on and on about how he thinks that people are being let out of insane asylums to come into the United States. Asylum means shelter. There are all kinds of usages of the word asylum. I was just telling you about how shelter or asylum or a place of safety works in the context of our immigration law. Again, offensive seeking of asylum at the border when you're in the US or already in the US up to a year, right? This is when, if you are on US soil, this is the asylum law that we are talking about. Now, what is, so you might say big deal. That's nice, but what happens now? Well, here's the order. The court, let me read you this. The court will accordingly grant, in part, the plaintiffs, these are the immigration groups, their motion for summary judgment. A motion for summary judgment, you guys, we've talked about this before, right? A motion for summary judgment means you win the case before we even have a trial, because based on the facts in the law, there's no way they win. Now, what else is happening here? What else is happening here is the court also said, Judge Moss said that he will grant in part their motion to certify a class. And then he is going to defer, there's another there's another part he's going to wait. And he now wants to, he's now saying the parties need to come up with a plan for further briefing. It's giving the judge information so he can decide, um, so the court can, briefing on whether the court can and should grant relief to those plaintiffs and putative class members who are no longer in the United States. So here's the deal with this, and this is critical. People who are still in the United States, the court has now has awarded them a victory. And let me say it backwards. The court has said you are now a class. So basically, anyone who is in the United States right now who would be able to seek asylum, I don't know the full boundaries of what this class is, right? Or maybe who was denied the ability to seek asylum or withholding of removal, or somehow the Convention Against Torture is being violated. I don't know the full ramifications, but let's start narrow. Anyone who is in the United States who would have the ability to seek asylum, essentially, and maybe even bigger than that, or who has been not denied the ability to seek asylum, is now a class. And when he says that they have won, that this cannot apply to them, that is now, it's a nationwide class and essentially a nationwide injunction stopping Donald Trump's executive order. Donald Trump wanted to end asylum. The court just issued a nationwide injunction saying you cannot stop the ability for people to seek asylum or this halting of removal. You can't do that. Great. So now he's also saying, what do we do about the people who aren't here? Let's brief on that. Okay, so in and of itself, this is a win. And what is the implication? And then I'll show you a bit of some news reporting on this, but in a moment. The implication here is, let's step back. Donald Trump has signed numerous executive orders that are patently in violation of the Constitution and other laws of the United States. We know that. The key example that we have been talking about is one that just went up through the United States Supreme Court. That was Donald Trump's order to end birthright citizenship, right? And as you remember, that was not brought up to the Supreme Court last week on the merits, right? I'm sorry, it wasn't decided on the merits. The Supreme Court only said that they would not allow a federal district court judge to grant a nationwide injunction when a lawsuit was brought by people in his jurisdiction or by a small number of people, that the injunction only would apply, the order would only apply to those people. So let me back up and say this. What the Supreme Court did in that case is say only the plaintiffs in that case were entitled to stop Donald Trump from imposing this new definition of birthright citizenship on them. So there are some people in this country who are pregnant and babies who were born who are still protected by the US Constitution, but only in the places where those judges have jurisdiction. In places, in states where those cases have not been brought, babies born there will not be considered US citizens unless both of their parents are citizens under the executive order, right? That is what the Supreme Court did. So no one has ever, there's not a single court that has ever said Donald Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship, never has a judge said that's legal. Every single time the courts on this particular executive order or previously on questions of birthright citizenship has always been held constitutional. Efforts to stop it have always been held unconstitutional. Donald Trump has never won on the merits, but the way he has been winning is through making it very difficult and creating a patchwork of protection. why I'm so jazzed about this asylum decision yesterday is a class action was certified that's nationwide, which allowed this judge to issue a nationwide injunction. This question of a nationwide injunction through a class action came up in oral argument. I played part of oral argument for you last week. Okay, now I'm jazzed about this, but don't get too excited yet, because what do you think Donald Trump did yesterday, his administration, upon this order being issued? Well, first, let me just say the judge is smart. Judge Moss said, yes, these plaintiffs win. This class I have certified, they win. But I am going to not have the nationwide injunction go into effect until 2 weeks so that the Trump administration can appeal. And of course, they have filed their appeal. What does this mean? Okay, this will go up to the United States Supreme Court. I know it's summer. They will still deal with this. There'll be more news on this. But what I am saying to you is this is hugely promising. And I'm sorry I've gotten weird and into the legal weeds, but I know there are folks who watch this show every day, or if they don't, they are immersed in this, and they know that we will be coming back to this, because this could be the key to stopping the worst of what Donald Trump is trying to do without Congress. Now, I want to peek back in right now and see what's going on the House floor. And then just for a few minutes, then we're going to come back. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more, give you another angle on yesterday's decision before we close the show with some surprises and some crazy town. Okay, let me share that screen. And sorry, I've got to get my US House of Representatives here. Sorry. I got a lot of screens open. And oh, he's still talking. Give me a second.
And so we're in this budget reconciliation process that can avoid the filibuster in the United States Senate. And Republicans, Mr. Speaker, have been uninterested in trying to actually find bipartisan common ground. We're the party of common sense. Let's be clear about that. I'm going to be spending some time on the road talking about what common sense really is all about. Common sense certainly is not taking health care away from the American people. And so in this letter on February 19th, and I got a lot of statements that have been entered into the record, but I figured we'd start with this one. February 19th. Dear Speaker Johnson, as members of the Congressional Hispanic Conference, that's different than the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus right now is fighting hard on behalf of the health care of the American people. On the Democratic side, call that the real CHC. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus is fighting hard on behalf of the American people. But this is a letter as members of the Congressional Hispanic Conference. Mr. Speaker, as you know, these are Republicans here in the House of Representatives. And those who represent sizable Hispanic populations. We are writing to express our concerns regarding possible funding decisions stemming from the House Budget Resolutions Committee instructions advanced on February 13th, 2025. Those budget instructions, by the way, were what set this whole toxic process in motion that has resulted in this moment that we find ourselves in right now on the floor of the House of Representatives, connected to this one big ugly bill. And In this letter, it says that while we fully support efforts to rein in wasteful spending and deliver on President Trump's agenda, let me park right there parenthetically for a moment. Nothing in this bill is about waste, fraud, and abuse. Nothing is doing anything meaningful about waste, fraud, and abuse. The letter continues, it is imperative that we do not slash programs that support American communities across our nation. It then goes on to say that the House budget resolution proposed $880 billion in cuts to programs under the jurisdiction of the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, with Medicaid expected to bear the brunt of these reductions. Their words, not our words. Nearly 30% of Medicaid enrollees are Hispanic Americans, and for many families across the country, Medicaid is their only access to health care. Slashing Medicaid would have serious consequences, particularly in rural and predominantly Hispanic communities, where hospitals and nursing homes are already struggling to keep their doors open. Mr. Speaker, these are members of the House Republican Conference warning about the devastating impacts of this one big, ugly bill. It goes on to say that the House Committee on Education and the Workforce has been tasked with cutting $330 billion where federal.
Okay, I'm back. He's just going to keep talking. And now we're going to return to our good news before we wrap it up with a little crazy town. So I want to share with you from ABC News when this judge's order came out, how newscasters were talking about it. So let's do that right now. And let me also say one thing I didn't mention to you is the justification Donald Trump gave for suspending asylum, for essentially unlawfully doing that, is because he claims there's an invasion. And the judge said, nah, I don't buy it. That's not an excuse for doing this. Okay, so let's share this last video. And here we go.
All right, let's look at the impacts of the president's new travel ban with Kenji Kazuka of the International Rescue Community.
Oops. Sorry, guys. I did not get the one I had wanted. I will do this. This was not what I wanted. Sorry, guys. What I think I'm going to do, just for fun, I thought that was one that was going to do it for us, but I'm trying to find a video for you, and that was a different one. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I want to share with you. Maybe this is the best. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just not going to do that. We'll take a break from that, and what we're going to do now is jump into the end of the show. As we think about being a community and the possibilities of, as a community, through our votes, when we can use them, making sure we get every single Republican out of office because they are lockstep in line with this terrible agenda. Also, making sure that we take care of our health in every single way. As Tank, our mascot, would tell us, We need physical health, relational health, intellectual health, spiritual health, and mental health. And part of the way we do that is by sharing as a community. And so, what I want to share with you now is our two mods. I want to thank them for being just amazing people who show up here every day. Thank you, Deb and Jason. I also want to say we are looking for a third mod, and I will put a note up on after the holiday weekend on YouTube, and people can reach out to me, and we'll try to figure out the process of doing that. They have a way of managing things, and I like them to stay in charge of that. Now, what I also want to say is Jason is the one who wrote the lyrics and the music orchestrated for the song we play at the end of the show. And Jason, it turns out, isn't the only musician here. Deb plays in a band, and she is a clarinetist, and they are practicing for tomorrow for the 4th of July. And she shared with me something really amazing, which is the New Berlin, Wisconsin band. And I want to share this with you too. I want to play with for you this music because this is the American music that we love. And so I want to share that with you as when we, and it's ready there, as our music today, as our end music. No offense meant to Jason, just mixing it up for the 4th of July. And so where does that bring us? That brings us to the world in which we live, in which crazy town seems to be everywhere. And so I thought I'd share for good old times, for laughs, and for old times' sake, the fact that Donald Trump, yet at his press conference 2 days ago in Florida in the Everglades, while he is not making sense about anything except his very aggressive, sadistic, hateful, fascist efforts to detain people, obviously in violation of the US Constitution and the Convention Against Torture and US law, etc. What is he talking about, my friends? He is talking about, again, for old time's sake, I think you might be able to guess, but let's play a little crazy town music before I let you know. Okay. Here he is. Same old crazy guy. And there we go. His dementia in full force.
It was psychology, and we had to know how good we were. But others was getting rid of rules, regulations, and all of the things that I got rid of already. I signed more executive orders than anybody in history, times like 3 or 4.
Yeah, how's that
And I
working
got
out?
rid of just one. I got rid of the other night. You buy a house, they have a faucet in the house, Joe, and the faucet, the water doesn't come out. They have a restrictor. You can, in areas where you have so much water, they don't know what to do with it. You have a shower head, the shower doesn't.
Still
The shower
talking about
doesn't. You
this.
think it's not working? It is working.
I can't listen to him anymore. I mean, does he even know that he's repeating himself over and over again? While he is talking about not having enough water coming out of his faucet to his taste, he is in a facility where there was no running water in those cages. There was no plumbing so people could relieve themselves. It appeared to be a torturous prison. And this is what he thinks. It's beyond me. So, with that though, I am going to share Deb's band's music as I play you guys out. Have a great long weekend. And from here, I will see you on Monday. Here we go. Okay. Sorry, Deb. I got this. I really do. It's really good, you guys.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub show. Well, how come everyone? Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub show.